Well, hello, friends. Welcome to the From Busy to Rich podcast. This podcast exists to inspire advisors like you to increase your profitability and your quality of life, but not just for you, for those that you serve. Wes, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate having you here.
Howdy, Andy. Great to be here.
And today we're joined by Wes's friend, Dave Podell. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, Wes, you have a lot of friends, and you are selective about who you allow to share the platform. As we were talking about guests to have and people you wanted to feature, what is it about Dave that you felt like was unique within his journey? You wanted to have him on the show?
Well, outside of the fact that he's just handsome. And so if you are just listening to this podcast, you need to be tuning into the YouTube because you are missing out, is what I would say first.
It's the jack.
But outside of that, so I've known Dave, we were talking for at least 20 years. We met at an MDRT meeting, my very first MDRT meeting in New Orleans, and just started sharing ideas. And really for 20 years, we've never stopped doing that because both of us had a couple things in common. Both of us really had a desire to want to grow and to develop, and in the early days, not uncommon, survive, right? That of course was there. But past that, we wanted to get better. And better took on a lot of different forms. We've tried a bunch of stuff that didn't work, stuff that worked once we kind of tried it a few times and then figured out better ways to evolve it. And we always, every time we got the opportunity, every time I'm up his direction or he was down here or we could get to a meeting together, we would carve out time. And we would just sit and talk and think and challenge each other on ideas and send each other ideas. I mean, there's probably not too many weeks that go by without Dave shooting me a podcast or a book or vice versa. So I deeply appreciate Dave for a lot of reasons. But one is he just continues to challenge the normal and can challenge the way things are done to make it better with a specific end in mind and purpose. So that's why I absolutely wanted to have him on the show. And after months of requests, he finally capitulated and has made the time for us. So thanks, buddy, for being on.
Yeah, thanks for being on, Dave. Can you tell us where you're at in business now? What does your company look like? How many people? What are you all doing well to serve the world and make it a better place?
Yeah, to touch on something that Wes said to respond, he's absolutely correct. When I think back and of all the failures, things that we've tried, we just tried everything over those years, and we've been in touch throughout all of it. And I probably don't know half of the things he's tried and failed at, just like he doesn't know mine. But the things that we have shared, it is interesting to look back and see the evolution of what has happened with both of us. We both went in very different directions. And I think once we got to different places, what I've noticed with both of us is we then got bored in those places and went to new places.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
Our businesses have taken like twists and turns all over the place. Nothing that what we expected from probably the day that we met, where we just thought, hey, this is the beginning of a new life and we're going to on clients to make a bunch of money, and things didn't work out that way. We brought on clients though.
Well, we eventually made a bunch of money. It just didn't happen as like overnight like we thought it would.
And it sounds like your path to that, if that's a destination, there's more than one way to get there, right? So Dave, where are you guys at now? Tell us about what you do and what you do well. And
so right now, I mean, we could go back, but as right now, we have two separate companies that are similar, but I'm very in a very niche space in the advisory world where I work specifically in large deductible tax strategies for business owners, and in doing so, we are using defined benefit and cash balance combination plans, and that's all we do. And our business comes in and referrals come in primarily from CPAs and tax advisors. And then there's another staunch of referrals that come in from financial advisors, but the bulk is coming from those two areas. And we're vetting, and once we have a consulting company where we are vetting and working specifically with different actuaries around the country and looking at different plan designs, and then the advisory side of things. So it's very niche, very focused, and we have a team of almost 10 now, and I think we're at 9, and yeah, it's great, and it's very different from where I originally started, which started in an insurance world, where we then moved more into the wealth management side, and then the holistic planning, and then just kind of the evolution of things. But where I gained passion was in the area of this of learning about these different tax strategies and being able to speak on them, market to them, and that's kind of my passion now.
I want to ask about something you said about how you both had tried a lot of things, and I had this picture of sometimes you have to move a lot of dirt to find the gold or find find what you're looking for. What do you feel like other advisors are, or maybe they need to know about just trying things, about don't put all your chips in, but like you said, you both have said, hey, we've tried a lot of things. I think people are afraid of that, but do you look back at your path to where you are now and think, I had to try those things?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we still try everything. We're just doing it in one specific space. So we're still trying all different things. I know Wes is as well. If there's something out there that we think is interesting and we're looking at it and saying, okay, this could be beneficial and this could help us in some way, we're trying. I mean, I've like any entrepreneur, a different marketing idea every day, and put it down and go to the girl that works for me, Tara, on marketing, and say, hey, I have this idea. Let's make it come to life. And that, unfortunately, that list has gotten so big that I sometimes need to look at that and say, let's take that off there. That's a quick idea.
Tara has some job security because the list just gets longer and longer, right?
It's just, what Wes had said in the past, like, we don't have the time. We have all these ideas. We just don't have time. And I feel that because, and it could be a negative thing, but my head is always running and it just doesn't stop. And on the other side of it is, I think those are great ideas. Sometimes you step back and look at them and say, yeah, that idea is not so great. We shouldn't do that.
Let me ask you then, Wes. There's a guy that actually is out of New York, Gary Vee, that maybe you're all both familiar with, but people talk to him about taking risks, and he says, one of the things that he does to manage risk is he never puts it all on one thing, so that if it doesn't work out, he's okay. You can take big risks, big investments. But so we'll start with you, Wes. When you think about all the things you've tried, as we've got advisors listening to this that are just starting or have been in the business for 20 years, I was struck by what David said about, hey, I haven't, it's almost like you kind of corrected me, and I appreciate it. It's like, hey, I haven't stopped trying things. You don't stop. You're always trying things. So how do you keep trying things, but then they don't go well, but you survive? Because that's what advisors are hearing. Okay, I'd love to try things, but like, I got to survive.
That's right. I think there's a couple major ideas here. And one of them we frequently talk about on the podcast, but it is so fundamental to who I am. And it's fundamental to when I see great entrepreneurs like Dave, that it is this normalize the new mindset, is a transformative mindset where all of us have a normal, we have a current way we go about making progress in life and in business and the things we're doing. All of us can have a new, which is simply a transformed way of going about making progress and doing those things. But our greatest opportunities to recognize our future possibilities, it's not about necessarily abandoning the normal completely. Also not about rejecting new. It's about keeping tension between the two. And if there is a skill or a art that I think I have observed Dave and myself get a lot better at over time, it is keeping the tension healthy, because you can go and this is probably where Dave and I are wired uniquely different than I think the population, because I think that the most of the world, what they end up doing is they defend their existing set of habits. That's the default, is I'm going to defend the way it's always been done because I can do it with, autopilot energy. It's familiar. I know what it produces. And as much as I might want things to get better, I certainly don't want them to get worse. And so the danger is they reject new in defense of the normal. What I observed with Dave and I, especially earlier when we were much younger leaders, is we had a tendency to go way too far new and no, we got 5 new ideas. We're abandoning what's been working. We're just getting out here. And as a result, we suffered unnecessarily. And somewhere along the way, the maturation I think that takes place is you figure out the rhythm and the balance to saying, okay, we've got energy that we're always going to give to new, because that's one of the things, especially, I know we've done other podcasts on the working genius and things like that, but the invention and discernment is my working genius, the 6 types of working genius, Patrick Lencioni. And so I love new ideas. That's why Dave and I, that's why we get along so well, because we're always sending new ideas back and forth to each other. And, but we also talk about how do we think this one would play out? And we kind of discern and think, and oftentimes we kill them before they ever hit the market, because it's it was cool in thought, but maybe needs a little more polish or work. So I think the thing that Dave is a master of and continues to, this will never stop. We will be 20 more years down the road and it'll look different. I don't know what it'll look like, but it will have evolved. And it's not it's a lifestyle of it. It's not a diet that you do for 6 months. It is we're going to always need to give energy for new to keep tension healthy between the normal and the new, and continue to do those cycles of evolution to your next level.
Dave, do you feel like is that your role as the head of your company, that, hey, my job is to be looking out at new possibilities and trying new things and having vision, but then obviously have to live in your current. So for people who want to try things, what's your advice for them? I guess kind of the same question to Wes of they want to try new things, but they also want to eat. Right.
Yeah. Wes and I have both moved into these roles of, go to that EOS visionary integrator type systems, right? Where we're coming up with these things, we're creating vision for a team, we're creating a structure for implementation, but we're not being implementers. So that evolved over time. I think all these years we've been trying to figure out, well, how do we do that? Or how do we do things better? Or how do we move out of different roles that could be replaced and find leverage and scale and all this crazy business owner stuff that we never thought we'd be doing. But looking back again, we also, to Wes's point, I think we put fear on the side. We didn't have the fear that most people have. We needed to have the fear, but we also put it aside a bit and said, okay, let's take these risks. And you have to have that mindset to take these risks. Without that, we wouldn't have continued to evolve and get to different levels, because like anything else, you're just going to keep failing. And, and you had mentioned, Gary Vee said, put a whole bunch of things out there and see what sticks and have different areas and hedge that risk. I guess we did that not really intention. One of the things that we've always gone after, the thing that's probably common with both of us, is we've always had coaching. We've never did the same things, but always had individual coaches or coaching programs, or figuring out who we could talk to that could help us get to a specific place. And then I don't even know if we've ever, in my mind, if we've ever gotten to that place, because that place moves all the time.
Yeah. I love what you said, Dave, because one of the things you said is and it's like you corrected yourself with it. You said, well, we saw the fear, we just put it aside.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think it's Franklin Delano Roosevelt that said, courage is not the absence of fear. It's understanding something's more important than fear. And I think if there is a takeaway for people, if you're listening to what Dave just said there, is it's never a good time to do new things. It's always inconvenient and it might not work. But what if you have an exciting vision, if you know, hey, here's where I think I want to go in the future, it fuels you. It gives you the energy you need to do hard things, including looking at fear and saying that thing I want's way more important than the fear.
Yeah.
And when I screw it up, guess what? I know this isn't like the end. I just get to do it again different.
Dave, can you think of a specific example, and maybe there's 10 or maybe there's one, of something you were like, this is scary, and then it worked, and it worked wonderfully?
Yeah, a great example is us deciding to specialize in niche. Most people don't do that because what you're doing is you're removing everything else that you have that's there.
Yeah.
So it was for us to say, hey, we're not great at these things, or we don't want to do these things anymore, and we're just going to go all in on one specific area, and that's going to be it. And that's the hardest part of any advisor that's looking to, or any business that's looking to niche and go into one narrow place, is you have to give up everything else around it.
Well, and I think too, one of the observations about you, Dave, was when you made that distinction, it wasn't overnight that you said, hey, I'm just going to do this. I'm just jumping full in. You had been like dabbling in this world for a while, and your passion for it continued to increase and compound about it. And really, I remember having a conversation with you and you had said, hey, look, we're going all in this direction.
Yeah.
But it was thoroughly tried on. Like you'd worn that outfit for a long time. And you basically said, look, I just don't have a lot of passion for continuing to move in this direction. And which ultimately, a lot of it was things that I love, that I'm doing all the time. And he's like, that's good for you, Wes. I love that you love moving that direction. And he would talk to me about what they were doing. I'm like, man, I'm just glad somebody has energy for this. Cause when I run into it, I'm just going to tell them, you should talk to Dave. I'm not going there. I'm not doing it.
So Dave,
that's how I knew from testing that market and knowing that there was a need for it, and that there was a hole that we could fill.
Yeah.
Dave, how many and you can call it bragging, or you can call it fact, maybe it's both. How many people do you think do what you do? How many companies are that specialized in what you do within your region or area? Or
so in our specific space, I'm going to say 0. And the reason is because we are not, there's a lot of third-party administrators, actuaries, places that you can go directly to do these types of plans.
Okay.
And what I had determined is that those outlets are different from the next. These are not traditional on the shelf type retirement plans. So you can go to 5, 6 different, of those third-party administrators, and you're going to get 5 or 6 different outputs. For us on the consulting side, is we know how to navigate that whole puzzle, where to go, what to do, what to move, what's fitting for a client. And I have not found anyone in that intermediary space that does that. Yeah.
So am I right, though, that it takes a lot of years to know, and I hope I'm saying this right, a lot about a lot, meaning that you have to understand the landscape. And it's fine, those people, they have their different spots, but you're the next level above that, because you go, we understand all those people in their different roles, and we're going to help you navigate which one to use. Now, you could go directly to any of them, but that's just like sort of saying, let's go to a restaurant. What do you want to go to? I don't know, a restaurant, right? Versus going, no, like, we're going to help you discern exactly what is the best decision for you. And when you do that, how has it changed now that you've done that? How has it changed? And Wes and I talked about this in a recent podcast. How has it changed the people that walk in the door and how they walk in the door now that you're so specialized?
Yeah, you're solving one specific problem, right? You're there to solve one specific problem, and there's not many people, if any, that can solve that one specific problem. So that opens up a marketplace that's obviously across the country. we're not getting referrals that are in this area. We're getting referrals that are everywhere, because it's looking for one specific problem, and that person that, and that firm that can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say on that same theme is it's a bit like, the difference between a general practitioner and a brain surgeon, right? It is, we do this one thing and we've done it well thousands and thousands of times for a decade plus in this space and have proven results and track record.
Yeah.
Or you get a lot of people that dabble in this particular area that go, well, how many of you done this for? Well, not many, but you could be like the third, and maybe this will go well. And that's really the difference in this very specific space.
So I want to make sure that people at the full spectrum are connecting with this. If let's just say someone is 5 years in the business, so they've survived to this point, they're going to stick with it, but they feel like, man, I don't want to do this for the next 20 years. What I'm doing now, I don't want to do it for the next 20 years. I'll start with you, Dave. What would be your encouragement to them? Because they go, I mean, niche sounds great, but I just don't know. I'm a general practitioner. It's been good for me and my family, but I know that I don't want to do this same thing for the next 20 years. What kind of bets do they need to place? What kind of things they need to try? What kind of positions do they have to put themselves in to start to figure out what it is that they can become more of a superpower in?
I think it's an energy conversation. What brings the most energy? What are you doing that you find energy in? Because our low level energy is going to be there for the things that we don't want to do, but the things that we're getting excited about, that's super high level energy, and you can kind of feel that and determine this is where I need to start pivoting to move toward.
So what are your low energy and what are your high energy today?
I'm trying to figure that out all the time, and I will tell you there's not a lot of low energy, because over the years, and even on a daily basis, trying to transfer that low energy.
Yeah, totally. Oh, well, yeah, I get that. Like, you don't have to do them anymore. So what are those things that, for instance, if you were doing low energy and I said, how many people on your team, you'd say one, because that means you're doing everything. You're doing low energy stuff. So who on your team does stuff that you're just like, praise God, they do that, because I ain't going to do it. So
everyone's doing something obviously different from the next, but just for any advisory space, like, scheduling meetings, dealing with clients, dealing with problems, all those things that are for me, it's, I want to talk to the advisors and the tax advisors, and the clients, and that's what I want to. That's what I want to do. That's my high energy. It's opening up these new plans. It's also the excitement of getting the yes, and that we're going to bring on this new person. But that's high energy.
What percentage of your day is on those things?
Most. So our days are broken out. I'm sure Wes's are as well. In tactical and strategic days, and on tactical days, it's 90% of the day. That's what's happening. Yeah. On strategic days, I have very high energy, because I'm not working on the problems, but that's more visionary, creative type work, and that stuff is exciting. Even on the planning side. My mind gets very excited over the strategic planning. Yeah.
Wes, what about you? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, I'll say that, and then I want to tone down on an activity that I think is critical if you're going to continue to expand your possibilities in life. But I'll come back to that. So I'd say high energy. We talked about this a bit, and we'll post the newest version of this in the show notes. But we call it our triple T tool, and that's time, talent, transformation tool. And it is solely designed to harness the power of your energy and your team's energy. And what it is everybody in their whatever specific role they're playing
Right.
There are activities that you do right now. And so we have ours. And again, you can use ours as a template to go off of and then customize it for yourself. But it's every single thing that I do throughout a week in the life of me in a normal week. And what we do is we rank it two ways. It's always 10, 5, 1. First in the ranking is like, of these activities, a 10 is, this is something that is absolutely mission critical based on our current structure and organization that I do to the value creation and the money and the income that we have going on in our organization.
Right.
A 5 would be, this is mission critical, it be done. It's probably not mission critical, I do it. And then a 1 would be, no one really should do this thing anymore. and listen, you would be shocked how 21 years of doing this, how many times we still have 1s that show up. And, a lot of times it's like something that served you well for a period of your life. It just isn't. It's kind of expired. The markets have changed, moves. But then here's the other one, Andy. And here's what I love is then we do the same 10, 5, 1, but we do it in level of joy and energy. How much does this thing light me up? And so you go down that same list. And if it's a 10, this is like I would love doing this. It gives me a ton of energy. And man, I almost feel like better as a result of having engaged in it.
Yeah.
Even though I've done it all day. And then a 5 would be, I don't hate this and I can do it. I'm probably really good at it. It's all right. It's neutral. A 1 is, I can't stand this anymore. And it just sucks the life out of me. And if I have to do it anymore, it's just going to draw me down. So for every quarter for the past 10 years in some version, we've gotten better and better at my entire team going through these activities. And you know what we do? A couple of things is, we got a bunch of 5s that shift off of my plate and either onto an existing person that they are developing themselves, that stuff gives them energy, or we get a new technology or hire a new person.
Right.
But I'm always wanting the 10-10s. The more I can move into the 10-10 world, the better off I am. And so, and everybody, you can do this without having a formal way of going about it. That just helps us to make sure we're always asking the right questions. But I want to come back to what you made me think about earlier, Dave, is one of the things I know that you have a ton of energy for is the strategic and the new and the possibility side of things. How much time would you say you spend exploring? I'll throw it in the category of exploring new ideas or useful thinking in the form of podcasts, books, classes, workshops, coaches. Would you say you spend on an average? I don't know. You can break it down in whatever bite-sized time you want.
It's probably too much. It's probably too much. It's all the time. I mean, it's constantly looking at anything that's going to.
Yeah.
And
Dave,
I think that's just the way that I'm wired. I know you are too. It's just, if there's a different method or system or a better way or something that I want to know about, it's a lot of educational
and
development.
The follow-up question is, with all that energy for new ideas, exploration, you had never listened to the From Busy to Rich podcast that you're on today. He said, I'm not kidding. Everybody listen, you got to take, this is one of my best friends for the last 2 decades. And I like, hey, you want to come on the podcast? Because he's like, yeah, we'll come on. And he gets on here. He's like, now, who's the audience for this thing?
Well,
like,
Wes, why would he listen?
What's it even about?
You? If he's texting you, he doesn't need to listen. It's way more. But here's the thing. Dave's efficient, Wes. I'm going to defend Dave on this. Dave's efficient. He's not going to spend 30 minutes. He's just going to text you with a specific question. The man knows how to use his time, Wes. Okay.
I don't think you ever sent it to me. So,
all right, Dave, let me ask a follow-up, because I'm interested to hear. I think that some people, and this is happening right now, people are listening. Some people learn as a form of hiding. They just learn, and they learn, and they learn, and they learn, and they buy coaching, and they go to stuff, and they read a book, and they download a program. And it is a form of hiding. When you said I probably do it too much, is it just that you're sort of, addicted to the growth? Because I don't think you're talking about hiding. But can you speak to that a little bit? Because I saw you nodding your head a little bit. Like, yeah, some people just learn all day and they don't do anything. So what's the solution to
Yeah,
learn a lot but implement?
it's definitely not a form of hiding because I'm
I didn't get
aware.
that sense from you, but
Yeah,
you
I'm
resonate.
aware enough to know, and I think anyone has to be aware enough to know, like, what could be the possible result from this? Is this worth the time? Like, I understand and I track, and I'm very conscious of time. And if there's something that I feel, you pick up a book, it could be a great book, go through it,
Love it.
and I'll know 10 minutes in, like, I'm going to put it down and say, this isn't my best use of time. Let me go on to the next thing.
I love
So
that. I love that.
I'm very conscious of the time on what that is and what I'm putting in my mind.
I love that. I would just challenge folks on a really practical level. When's the last time you started something and you went, nope? I mean, I went to a restaurant last week. Was there for 5 minutes, stood up and left. I was like, this isn't going to work, folks. I was watching the service. I was like, oh, nope. And it was a decision about the value of me and my kids' time. Because with my kids, I'm like, guys, we're out of here. What, really? Yeah. This is not worth our time. Right.
You
And
know
I
what? It's
think that's a
hard.
discernment.
You know why it's hard is because we're always taught, and all you hear is don't give up, don't give up, don't give up. Stick with something. You find a good idea, you find something that you want to do, you're excited about. Don't give up on it, keep going on it. So it is hard. It's not just the content it's, well, what should you be giving up on and what should you not? And it also comes down to, and I think Wes and I both do it, is clarifying what's going to get you to where you need to be, and what activities are you doing that's moving you toward that end goal that you're trying to accomplish? Because if it's not in that realm, that you have to stop.
Yeah, and there's so much in that, I think, that is so fundamental to living a rich life, is that clarifying and continuing to re-clarify what does a rich life look like for me over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, because it evolves. You can't even see what a rich life will look like 10 years from today, really, because you have to climb some mountains and go up and down to be able to see what a positive possibility would look like. And so not tying every decision to eternity is a big deal here, I think. And you spoken, Andy, when you talked about like the consumption of knowledge without the application, basically, is I love, there's an old proverb, it's one of my favorites, is why is there in the hand of the fool the purchase price for wisdom, since he has no heart for it? Meaning that you can go pay for the class, you can go buy the book or the you can invest the time in the podcast, but we talk about it all the time. Unapplied truth is like unapplied pain. It doesn't do anybody any good. You have to have a system where you're regularly trying on that knowledge, doing away with old, adding new, seeing how it goes, evaluate. Without that, there can be no intelligent progress. And again, I think just making sure you're doing that by design. Do these things align with where I think I really care about going? The old Carl Roach's definition of meaningful financial planning is about the alignment of the use of capital, being your time, talent, energy, and money, with what you really care about. And so unless you're really defining and redefining what that is, that thing is you really care about, you're living a default future. You're moving towards something that people have told you should move towards, well-meaning people too, like you, and then here's what you should want. Here's where you should go. Or even a younger version of yourself told you wanted. And as today's point, you drove towards it, and now you have so much sunk cost, which is an illusion, right? That you think, well, gosh, if I don't really like this, but if I stop now to go towards this other thing, I've got so much energy spent towards this. But you should be able to abandon that at any time in order to get to the life you really want, because you know more. It wasn't loss. It was an experience that helped you understand what you really wanted.
Yeah. So, Dave, I want to wrap by asking you this question. As a person who's constantly learning and getting new ideas, and also wanting to find the best version and live the best version of yourself and your business, what are you looking forward to in the next 10 years of your business, of your personal development? As a person that says, hey, I don't want to be the same next year and the year after, I want to be a better version. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's hard to see it because we don't know, right? We're trying to develop that future self. It goes back to the Benjamin Hardy would, figure out that future self and move toward that future self. And looking forward to it, it's all of it, right? Because when you start thinking about it, it all starts developing into something that's bigger and more extensive of what you've created. And then you're looking back and saying, look at that time from where, this specific time, how did I get here? And what is the future that I want? And what is that bigger future? And then trying to move toward that. So, looking forward to it, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I can see in my mind that it's bigger than where it is right now, a lot bigger, because when we all do these goals, we do these goals that are life-changing goals and things that could be so massive. And then we try to determine, what activities do we need to do to get toward those goals, and what actions do we take? But specifically, it's growing the area where I am now, continuing to move into the high energy places.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's always gonna happen, because I think what brings my passion right now is not going to be the same as it is 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line. It's going to be different things. That has always changed, and it's not something that we control. It just, that's what happens.
Yeah. I appreciate the way you answered that, because I think that as your passions develop, that's where your life will develop. And so, your passions are changing and growing. And I think it's interesting. It's we set goals for ourselves, right? But you have to be passionate about it. And it's interesting how many people will set a goal, but is that really an alignment with their passion? And that's what, you've got to figure that out. Wes, I'll give you the last word. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead, and then we'll get Wes.
You had asked, you brought up the advisor that might be in a specific place that says, well, I don't know if I want to do this, 20 years from now, or, I was never in that. I was never in that place. I was always in the place where I had a horrible day, a horrible week, horrible month. I don't want to do this anymore. Right. Like, but it wasn't, what am I going to do for the next 20 years? I think it was figure this out, move on from it. This is going to keep happening kind of thing, or pivot and learn from the failure, was always the answer. But somebody that's stuck in, well, I want to do something else in those 20 years in that time frame. I think with Wes and I think life and evolvement and ideas brought us to different places, what Wes would call seasons, that just kept changing and changing and changing. And so I can't look 10 years and say, well, this is what's going to happen in those 10 years, because that'll be a different season for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
I heard I'm at a workshop I was recently at, a new way to take a different approach on the seasons, because the challenge, and they do exist, right? The challenge is seasons repeat. He said, I like to think of it in chapters, because now there's a new chapter of the book that I'm writing of my life. And while, yes, there's always seasons within chapters, I do like that, because as I think through time, there's just been volumes of chapters that have occurred as we've navigated the seasons of life. And the one thing that I would close with, Dave, is with you, is that I know after today is going to be a part of the future Dave that exists, is that you just listen every week to the From Busy to Rich podcast. I know that's made its way permanently. Now you can't say you didn't know about it. I'm going to be checking in.
Well, Dave, I want to thank you for your time. And Wes, thanks for your connection with Dave for our listeners. And, Dave, as you mentioned, you've done a lot of things, and you didn't say fear didn't show up. You said you set it aside. And so I would encourage you, those who are listening, to take a page or a chapter out of Dave's book and say, hey, when fear comes, that may be a sign that you're actually doing the right thing, but you do need to set aside and keep moving forward. So fear doesn't stop coming. It just comes, and you say, oh, good to see you again. And you set it aside. And that's what Dave has done. That's what Wes has done. And it's what we want you to do. Keep finding those things that are scary, and don't put all your chips in there at the same time, but keep making bets on yourself, keep developing. And I would encourage you, if this episode's been an encouragement to you, to listen to it again. There's, as Dave said, some things you start and you go, I'm going to quit on that early. Some things that are really impactful, listen to it again, read the book again, whatever it might be. So Wes, thanks for having Dave join us today. And Dave, thank you so much for your example. Congratulations on your success and continued development.